Welcome. Let me see if everything's synchronizing here. Looks like one's going. Okay, cool. Let me get my chat windows out. Welcome, anybody who's here. I know I'm getting started late on this one, but I appreciate people joining. Sorry if my voice is a little bit low here. Hang on really quick. Started late on this one, but all right. Okay, let me just get some quick drink of soda. Yeah, I know. I don't want to hear any lectures on my choice of beverage. And I'm not advertising, so forget. I'm not telling you. All right. So I'm a little bit, I haven't been doing as many things lately. So I thought I'd try to do at least like some of these day in review things when I find more topics that I've covered in the past that I can speak to today when, there's like more relevance or something that's new on them. And so what's changed? Well, I've talked a lot about John McAfee in the past, not so much lately, but I did, like a year ago. And then I tried to do some things to talk about what was going on with him relative to being in a Spanish prison for the last several months. But, at some point, I think I kind of felt like, as anything that I say going to do, anything that's really good for the guy in this particular case, because I don't get a lot of visibility to my own. So, if a guy with that many resources is having difficulty, with the justice process, I can only imagine. And it occurred to me, though, that John McAfee, those unfamiliar, was a pretty controversial guy. Um, yeah, if you don't know what happened, today he was found dead in his prison cell, and a lot of people are making speculation already about what did or didn't happen. And I'm the kind of person that really, I've always historically kind of like not taken a lot of people's claims of these sort of like wild stories about themselves or others all that seriously within a lot of these, whatever these types of, you'll hear these stories oftentimes about John McAfee or some other type of celebrity of equal stature that, whether they're celebrity or whatever, that did all these shocking things, and people tell all these horrible stories. And then, what compelled me about John McAfee, I guess, and why I spent more time, talking about him and listening to his material, was that I felt like, regardless of what kind of a person he really is or was, there was a method to his technique of just sort of like, giving everybody the middle finger and then getting them to chase after him. And then uh, um, when they did, they realized that, he was a pretty compassionate person, a pretty decent guy that was, I think, trying to do something good for the world. And I think he did care about America, um, and was trying to save it from itself in a way, in his own unique ways. I think he had good intentions. All I'm trying to say, by and large. But what kind of person was he really? I don't know. I really don't. So I try to remove the morality out of the whole thing altogether as much as I can, and just try to stick to what was he doing in those last, 5 years, especially, of his life. And even outside of work within cryptocurrency and doing things like creating more private platforms for smartphones to make them a little bit, I think the part of the reason John McAfee, some of his business ventures maybe weren't going where they were supposed to was a lot of people just don't even understand why they needed what he was talking about. I I guess I understand that. Um, it's something that makes sense to me. I understand like when you're a person that's trying to explain something to the world and they take for granted that something that they hold in their hand every day just sort of works and they don't dig deeper into how and why and where and everything else. And that was something that I noticed that John McAfee was doing was he was really telling people like, well, do you know why perhaps like you shouldn't use a Wi-Fi on your smartphone? In fact, why you shouldn't use Wi-Fi anywhere, even at your home computer, even if you think that it's a secure system. And here's why. And he would talk about like all the revelations about how he knew that every single manufacturer of routers that would be available in America are effectively just backdoor doped from the get go. There's really almost no product that's available that doesn't have this backdoor in it. And so the only way that he ever felt comfortable connecting to any network was via whoever the cell phone carrier was. So he would rather take his chances trusting the data network provided by the cell phone network um, home internet or like a Wi-Fi, obviously at a hotel or something of that nature, or like a Starbucks, for example. Those are kind of like I think even people with a lower sophistication level know that they're not very secure environments. Um, a person like me, I just don't care that much anymore. I'm just like whatever. People kind of have, they kind of know. I've opened my environment up in so many different spots that as far as my cell phone technology and what I know and what I'm trying to help them decipher. That's why like the more I started learning about what he was advocating for relative to security issues on smartphones, I really started to go, wow, he's not lying to people. And I think that most of the people that I see doing his type of disclosure are sort of willfully deceiving. And whenever I would see John McAfee in a news story anywhere, and regardless of what I thought about the reporter talking to him, I always got like a lot of truth from his stories that I was as it passed technical muster. I'm telling you this as a man that has 2 decades, that's 20 years old plus in the wireless telecommunications industry. And I wasn't like just a cell phone. I didn't do things that were, I mean, the amount of time I spent doing like frontline work was very minimal. That was only like a couple years of those entire time. I got my start, yeah, in a retail environment, but yeah, eventually, ever since 1990, well, look, 1994 is when I got a technical position, but it repairing cell phones and installing cell phones back in the analog days. But by 1997, I was actually repairing and maintaining cell phone networks. I was a person that repaired base stations at the cell phone towers. So I was at that level of knowledge, engineering wise. And then by the time 2004 range, doing all of the digital technologies. I was well into swing by that point, and I was optimizing those networks and being promoted to positions like system performance, where I drove test networks and literally did things like, "Can you hear me now?" It was kind of funny to us because at the time I worked for U.S. Cellular. It was a really small company compared to like the bigger ones. It was a good sized company. It is a good sized company, but it's just not the same as you know AT&T and T and Verizon and Sprint. They're in T-Mobile, well, T-Mobile I should say, since they merged, but those are all like these mega merged corporations and everything like that. And I worked for the ones that were like the holdouts that were like, no, we're just going to hold on to our little rural territories in the Midwest and in the Northwest of America and in the East Coast. Like they have these little pockets of coverage where they do an incredibly good job of like covering where they're at. Like you wouldn't expect the kind of coverage in rural areas like you get from this company that I worked for. And I know why that is, because I was actually part of the people that made that a reality. Not just maintaining them, but for several years um, I what do you want to say? I actually was designing them and decided where the cell towers go. So I did quite a number of technical positions that were at a more basic level and a frontline level, right up to the long term planning, as well as the forensic a lot of device testing. So when I tell you know things about like who would be telling the truth relative to these issues versus who isn't, it's just a matter of whether or not you think I'm a trustworthy guy too, I guess. So I guess if you're here, you must think that I'm probably better than average on that, or else you're just trying to check out my bullshit if you think I'm doing that. Well, we've gotten past that, folks. You must know by now. It's pretty verifiable, a lot of things I talk about, or that I'm at least willing to sort of say, like, okay, yeah, here's an open data set. And, I can't always prove some of these things, that I get as tips. I can just say that they sound, they would pass muster technically and things of that nature. So, I try to distinguish which is which. But in the case of John McAfee, yeah, I can tell you that, like, he even surprised me with some of his observations that I had made assumptions that, about security that he challenged a little bit. Then when I went to go like, oh no, I think I know better on this one, I went and looked it up and I realized that I was wrong. So, that's why I liked what he brought to the table as far as like, um, just disclosure in general. So here's the thing. A lot of his material surrounding smartphones, I think if you were to go to his channel and you were to give it like a good review and forget about all the crap surrounding it, like, did he do this in Belize? Did he kill this guy? Did he do this other shocking thing? Is he on bath salts? Is he a crackhead? Like he did all these things that were really over the top to get people's attention. And then once if you really led back to where he was going and found his shock displays of like obvious guys, he was using some pretty obvious methods of what I would call benevolent, like discordianism, or how would I say it? Yeah, I would say it was, I mean, without having all the Principia Discordia, and Goddess Eris things, but yeah, it's absurdist. It's like Church of Subgenius. It's like, it's encrypted, but not that deeply encrypted. It's always giving you a, you know, every step of the way, and to where you should be able to figure out that it's not what you think it is. So if there wasn't something that's sort of over the top and shocking to get your attention, would you ever pay attention to the guy? And so I think at some point he knew that people were going to come after him no matter what. So he may as well just, it's like there's that movie 24-hour Party People where he's like, in my experience, if you can, when you're faced with a questionable, like, did it happen, or the legend, print the legend. Like, so if you have a choice between an exaggeration that's an awesome story or something that's just, whatever, kind of boring or whatever, just take the one that's more interesting, I think. And so in the case of McAfee, yeah, he was just, a lot of those people that told stories, they had two separate storylines that were completely in opposition of one another. And some, he was the most brilliant, nice guy in the world, and the other ones, he was a total turd and they hated him. And then you would go back to another interview and they would say like, well, I called him up and I said, these people are telling me they pay me to give them, they pay me to give a shocking interview or to say these things about John McAfee. And so I told him, when we talked, I said, is it okay or whatever? Or he would say later on that, like, well, what did you expect him to do? Like, honestly, did you really expect him to do anything but say the most shocking and salacious stories? And so, of course, he goes, so believe what you want to, but, then we're going to have to get past it, um, and get down to, like, why don't you pay more attention to, like, my warnings about your exploits into your smartphones if you're so worried about what I was doing with drugs and blah 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 blah, or women or whatever else like that? Why aren't you equally worried about what's going on with your security environment overall, your Wi-Fi routers and all these other things like that? I mean, it's it's this method that I call like the PCU method. That I, like, there's this great film, and I someday I'm going to do a whole dissection on it. I need to get a copy of it, like buy it. Sorry guys, I mean I have it on DVD, except I don't have the DVD anymore. So, but I did buy a DVD of it years ago. But there's this movie called PCU that discusses this technique brilliantly, and it's something that I think guys like McAfee have learned, and I understand it, from from my own perspective. I'm not quite as whatever overt about it or whatever like that, but I understand the method. Sometimes there's things that you got to do to get people's attention a little bit. That's like, if you think about it, guys, sometimes when you've approached people like, hi, I have some information to share with you, and I think you're going to really benefit from it. It'll really help our country. And well, my name is Gabriel Cruz, and I'd like to help you with this. It involves cybersecurity, and nearly everybody has these exploits into these devices. And the person's already yawning. Yeah, I've heard these things so many times. Can you upload that to a database, man? My head hurts. Yeah. All right, bye. And sometimes if you go like, hey, asshole, like, whoa, hey, yeah, I called you an asshole. Hey, I got something to say about your mother too. And then they're like, what? And then, you get them to chase after you a little bit, and then you lead them back to this treasure trove of information that's going to help them. But what inspired them to chase after you was they got a little bit like pissed off at something you said or did. And so, look, I don't like go out of my way to do this or anything like that. It's just sort of happened to me sometimes. Just because I'm me, and I'm not trying to be offensive. But I think most people understand by now. I don't necessarily care if I am. Like, I'm not going out of my way to, but it's like, to me, it's just like people just have to, myself included, sometimes you just all have to get thicker skin about things, and evolve a little bit and not worry about things. I'll talk about that sometime, actually, about, contextualizing things and separating words from intention. So don't let me forget that. I want to talk about that. I'm putting that down here because I don't want to forget that. I always do, and that's something I want to get back to after I talk about McAfee, and then maybe before we get into the Britney topic. But um, here's what I'd like to say though, in summation though, about McAfee. When I was initially shocked by some of the information, it led me back to interviews that were really thought provoking and brilliant. Said a lot. He confronted, sometimes very respectfully, even though the guy has a record for being rebellious. He did have some respectful debates with the FBI on camera, on television. I thought that was pretty cool. And then beyond that, there was a really personal story, I think, that was involving his wife, Janice. That I think that when you get past everything else, there is humanity in their story. They have this brilliant sense of humor about all the conditions behind it, which are absolutely unique. I won't get into detail, guys. Like, learn on your own. But to me, like, it was this sort of like a bittersweet story of these people that really, um, there was this like things where she was incentivized to, like, I guess, do, perhaps do things negative to him. And so she didn't really know how to, like, keep herself safe, keep him alive, and then get them both away from this group that was potentially going to harm her and him. And they've had this really challenging relationship and gone through all these, trials, by fire, I guess you could say, where, I don't know, I found that all, like, their love for each other, like, there was a sincerity to it that I found really heartwarming. And there was this time at the interview and he was like, how could you not see the fucking humanity in this? And I said, like, yeah, I agree. How can you not see that humanity, in their story? And like, once you really understand it and hear like the whole, like, them talking about it for like 20, 30 minutes at length, yeah, beyond just the sound bites that are there just to F with your head a little bit and shock you. If you get past all those initial, details of it, there was a lot of humanity. There was a lot of, I would even say, sweetness to it in a lot of ways that I found pretty heartwarming. And so I don't know. It's strange where you find, things, and I guess when you're in challenging situations and things like that, how people find one another and then, care for one another. And I just thought they were a really cool couple. And so it's kind of sad to see John go and to see Janice go through that loss. So on the more human level to this, all guys, I just, I'm sad about that part, and I wish her well, and anybody else that was the family or whatever, anything else like that, obviously, because he had a lot of disclosure and doesn't get a lot of credit for that part. People are more obsessed with all the other details about his life, and so I'd say once you get past all that, maybe in memoriam, maybe dig deeper into his security issues and less about the other crap that was just kind of there to lead you into the other things. And that, I think, would be the valuable lesson from it. Maybe it's more discordism and shocking stories to get you to look into the deeper parts about why you should care more about how you get information to your cell phone and things like that. Because I feel the same way. And what I've learned over time is that his method is way more effective than the way I've tried to go about doing it. Because I did go the way where I'm like, "Hi, I'd like to share some things with you, FBI." They did the whole, like, we don't care, Gabriel. Like, I think we would like you to go down to that secure, very insecure network at Starbucks and upload this to the IC3 database that you're trying to tell us is more, doped, or at a very minimum sniff reported by criminal organizations, like to give them tip offs. It's like there's really no point in you guys giving you guys tips is just a little bit like, I don't know. It's so strange that we exist in an environment where the federal law enforcement, like, giving them information, it's almost like you'd be giving it, like, pick your cartel. Do you want the FBI cartel, or do you want one of the other privately run cartels to have your information? It's almost like that's kind of like the environment we're in. But we're a country of laws, and so I go about doing things in a lawful, legal matter. And I learned that once I get to that point, they kind of railroad the process by going, and that's our FBI. But that they were all over John McAfee's ass to pay his taxes and everything else like that, So no representation, but there's definite taxation. But when you're Jeff Bezos, when you're, when you're all those guys, right, you can have zero tax bills. If you're Warren Buffett, you have a zero tax bill, right? And so what is that? Explain this to me, how these people are getting rebates. They're getting taxpayer funded rebates from Congress sometimes to, like, fund a. I mean, guys, that any of us have to pay for a single road improvement, a single, or that any of, like, if you're in a state that would compete for one of their fucking sorry, excuse me. Been trying to drop less F bombs in my live presentations. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. If you weren't expecting that. Oh, okay. Sometimes I'm just gonna do it because it's, like, warranted, so I apologize. But yeah, it's I'm trying not to do that very much. But anyways, guys, anyways, let's just move on from this topic in general. All right. And on that topic, let's talk about separating words from intentions a little bit. I think it's worth discussing. I used to talk a lot about context. That the context of words is extremely important when you're reviewing them, especially if it's a simple, like, something that you're just looking at as a text message or an email. I've tried to take the approach similar to the way, like, a screenwriter might prepare for, like, a movie director. When you're reading a script, for example, like in a book, the book will describe how the person is feeling at the moment. So you have context to what the words are expressing. Unfortunately, what our mainstream media has done quite masterfully is created an environment through which people no longer critically just think of context regarding words. We times the context of how the person presenting it to us has staged it. And that's the problem. What is their intention behind their staging of said words to recontextualize, miscontextualize them? And I think that's especially important to remember if you're going to get offended by something. Now, I would say more often than not, the best option is to choose not to be offended. Even if you are offended, it's just better to choose not to be offended by things that people say because it can be an energy suck. It can just sit there and just get to you. And, that's not, it's not really productive, right? So, um, what am I trying to say here, guys? Soundbite politics, especially relevant to the mainstream media, is very good at changing context of words and changing someone's intentions quite intentionally. And so, I would say that nearly anytime the media is trying to present something to you to like put a bullet up there to say like, hey, look, this is what this person said. I would say try to review it in your mind to go like, wait, what if these were your words? Just make this like a heart chakra exercise that to battle the mainstream media. Let's talk more metaphysical here, especially if you love Gaia Mother Earth. This will be really up for you guys, and those of you who don't so much but want the more esoteric advice. This is going to help with it. That within this mainstream media cycle, I think it's really sort of important to sort of understand that that if you were to take those soundbite things that are designed that are designed to make you angry, and you remember to think about it like it's a screenplay, and to rewrite the script in such a way where you change the context of the words to have a different meaning when you repeat them inside your mind. Because sometimes they're taking a sentence that could easily be sarcastic, that could easily be ironic, that could easily be all kinds of things that if you don't know like the whole paragraph that came before it or the sentence that was right after it, and someone just shows you one or two lines that says like, you see, look at this is the universe that we're existing into, the relevant to the media, folks. So I would say like I'm just making an appeal to people to like not get pissed off initially when they see things like this, because they're designed to get you into that type of whatever. And especially when it comes to people like a guy like McAfee, for example, I really feel like that's why he sort of worked. He went absurdist with his sort of like, doing all of his like how to uninstall McAfee. Guys, if you've never watched How to Uninstall McAfee Antivirus, look it up. How to Uninstall McAfee Antivirus by from the John McAfee YouTube channel. Now, if it is not safe for work, and if you don't have an adult sense of humor, don't watch it. If you don't find that type of humor, you'll know within the first 30 seconds it's that kind of humor. You'll know to shut it off. Uh, so if you don't find that funny, then yeah, you're not going to get it, and it's not for you. But see, he knows his audience, and he knows people that would really actually have the skill sets to decrypt and decipher what it is that he had going on. So again, I think that context, is very important. Intentions is very important. So I don't know. I just kind of look at a person, I kind of look in their heart, and I go, once I clear past all of the things that could be easily made up or exaggerated or whatever it could possibly be, I just have to look at that person at intuitive level and go, what are they really trying to do? Do they care? And regardless of what they were before, is the person I'm looking at now a person that's giving me real information and is sincere? And he's just one of those very few people that passed muster when it came to the truth of his information. So I felt like tonight I wanted to acknowledge that in memoriam, and and I wish, my hopes are, guys, that knowing how much he did crypto wise is that, and I'm not going to sit here and be the guy that investigates it, but I hope this is just his own little, that he Tupac this or whatever you want to say, that it's not a real thing, maybe that, he's going to release some more albums with some face masks or something like that, and do it in a way that is very obvious. I would love to see something like that happen. It was really all just a big, like, haha, that he escaped somehow, like it's going to be the next DB Cooper, but done in the modern era where it's nearly impossible. I think if there's one person that could, it would be a John McAfee. And so I would just prefer to believe that something like that happened in my heart, I guess, and just not think too much about the how it worked. Yeah, do I believe it? So that's going to be the inevitable question. Do I believe one way or the other that he's dead? I don't know. But I would just say I hope not, and that I hope whatever he's doing is in continuation of some of the revelations that he was doing, and the disclosure that he was doing, and that he seemed to really care about doing that. So, anyways, my hat's off to anybody, regardless of whatever's going on. If they've done it or do it like that, it does provide value. And I think if the FBI had spent more time, look, what I know about the FBI, I'm sorry guys, I just like they don't give a shit about this information like what he says or what I say or anything like that, because they just seem to be kind of, I don't know, some of them are in on it. It's just like our cartels are just being run by that level at this point. It's more like organized crime. It's more like they absorb operations. They kind of pretend that they're being run independently as independent gangs that have informants as kingpins, but it's really just that they're taking a cut of all the criminal enterprises, and the whole purpose of informants is just to control the crime, not really fight it. That's as far as I can tell. That's really what's going on with the FBI, and I think that's why it's all become a big fucking global joke. And so I think that if he did just do a disappearing act where he had somebody like say like, "Oh, whoopsie, found John in his prison cell," you know, if I was a prison guard, I'd be like, I don't know, where's John McAfee? That's him. We can't recognize that person. I don't know. Think about it. All these people, they would just be like, why would you be the person that would just be like, what, I know what happened. I don't know, man. Maybe he is staged opposition. I don't know. It's possible. But I still think that the things that were revealed by his character, even if it is, was probably some of the better material that I saw, that I actually was like, wow, he actually is saying something there about, like the rooting of the device. It's consistent with things that I've learned from the industry. That's all I'm telling you. So again, I'm not a person that's like into cults of personality very much and everything like that. I just feel like because he is kind of a complicated guy, it's worth those things are worth saying, in memoriam, whether it's the one that needs to happen or it's just a one for his staged disappearing act or whatever like that. In either case, whatever he was in this incarnation of the guy, I think ultimately his information did more good than harm. All right, let's get on to the Britney thing. And so today there was some news basically that Britney was really pushing back on this. And so, number one, you look, guys, it's not as if I'm going to sit around and like go like I've always been behind this issue, because I haven't. It's not like I've always cared or whatever. Um, yeah, look, I'm not shocked by their inaction anymore. Just so you know, I'm over it. Okay, I've already talked about it. That's okay though. I do hours worth of material, so it's hard for anybody to whatever. But no, like I go there and I'll report in front of them and I'll say that it is shocking that you don't do things. But no, am I surprised any longer? No, no. So yeah, you have to look at the timestamps on a lot of those stories that I did from those FBI offices. They were over a year ago, and in some cases, I even spoke about John McAfee when I was at those FBI offices. Trying to like say like, it's weird. Like I'm thinking about. You have to understand, guys. Before I get into Brittany, real quick, one more on this topic. Like that, they take in like mafia informants that have like killed people and tortured people and like beat up people and had horrible track records of being cruel and doing all kinds of crimes and really victimized people. But if you're a person that has never hurt anybody and just has a challenging personality, or there's just some things that are unique about you or whatever like that, they will find a million reasons to poke holes in you, like going, oh, I don't know, did you pay your taxes? I don't know, did you whatever? Yeah, yeah. I heard you farted while you were filling out an employee application last year. Yeah, you know you're not supposed to do that. That's against Homeland Security rules. There's all these like things that it's just bizarre the way they can actually just like make a million different reasons why they don't have to look into certain stories, but they will just ravenously attack on other ones that it just are meaningless and have no real they're not important. They're all just there for baiting people's perceptions, things like the noose thing that happened, crap like that. That's just such a race baiting story that's designed to get people on all sides angry. you know if you're a person that has a history of like experiencing racism, yeah, you're going to want that shit investigated. And so you're going to see all the other people that are going like, oh my god, you guys, don't you see through this? They're going to say like, no, I want that noose investigated. And so all the people that know that it's been a bogus thing set up, maybe even by people in that very FBI, maybe because they all just wanted to go to where the NASCAR race was that day. You ever think about that, guys? Maybe just a bunch of people at the FBI made the fucking shit up because they wanted to get into the NASCAR race for free and watch it. And so they just go there and pretend to like investigate this story and everything. And then it gets all this negative attention nationwide and everything and like that. And you're like, going, well, yes, it required a dozen of our agents at that NASCAR facility. It wasn't because we were watching those finals over there or anything like that, just hanging out in one of the boxes up there for free or anything like that. No, kind of a joke. Because I mean, guys, I've gone there, and it's just almost like, guys, are you even doing anything in there? Are you guys like shooting movies in there or something like that? Are you filming the news up in those offices? Because it kind of feels that way. Anyways, I'm just saying, guys, like I've had some pretty relevant things that were technology hacks or that dealt with cartels and trafficking things that I was like trying to help them out with to say like, would you like some assistance? And just to be like a little bit more, you know, guys, because whether you agree with it, they're going to do something or not, it's still the system, right? You can't just say, oh well, I don't trust the FBI, so I'm not even going to go there. No, I mean, if that's the agency you have to go to, you at least have to make the effort to report it because that's the law. And then what I've learned is, guys, and I did it in a public way because number one, initially I didn't necessarily trust that everybody that told me that they won't do anything were telling me the truth. Again, that was years ago, guys. They were talking 5 years ago, you know, and then once I realized that nothing was going to happen as a result of reporting some of those things, I was kind of like, gosh, I wonder what why that might be. And then it occurred to me that there may be insiders that aren't just at some of these tech companies, but yeah, they probably have some insiders at least at a pretty high level, if not even at a lower level within the FBI, that helps facilitate some of the information technology hacks, and are aware of the fakery and taking part in some of the fakery. It's only because I did such deep research into it relevant to people that I actually knew. So it was one thing when I thought it might be a thing from a distance. It's a whole other thing when you get into details that are really close to people or might be within your family or close to your family. Then you're like, yeah, I see this matching to this, but this looks totally fake to me over here. And yeah, I'm related to that person. Like if I wasn't related to that person, I'd be looking at this data from a distance and going like, that's fake. That is fake. And so when it is somebody that I know and I can tell that it's fake, I'm kind of going, wow. And so again, guys, I say it with a heavy heart that yeah, there's a lot of things going on there. So anyways, let's talk about Britney because I think that's really kind of what I wanted to focus more on because I think that um I for a long time have had this intuition that she was being perhaps like subdued with technology. There is technology that can kind of slowly just sort of like make a person hive into another person, and it makes their thoughts match and synchronize with another person's thoughts. And so I wanted to throw that out there because it's like I try to tell people like I I'm not I'm not down with that type of thing, and I don't want people doing that. And if anybody ever has evidence that it might be happening in any tangible way, I try to like decipher what the mechanisms are behind how that might work. And that's why everything to do with Britney Spears' conservatorship bothers me, because I'm a person that's researched actually do things to the brain, the body, and I've been exposed to them for up to a year at a time, and had the opportunity to measure them and collect data. And so if you've ever been exposed to these systems, you know the physical effects, like how it hits you. And so I look at a lot of when people mock and or just over examine some of Britney Spears' Instagram posts and things like that. Even though I'm not a celebrity culture person, I almost never care about these things. There is something about her information that I found really compelling because of the way she develops these types of rings around her eyes in some of these posts that I don't think is just something that's to do with age or whatever else. Yes, guys, that's part of it. But it's the way you get tired. Hang on. The way these systems, in my experience, hit the person in the face, it it's like it's taking plasma. And so my guess is that if Brittany is in mansion, I think that there's probably signals on the level of like Lily Wave. In fact, I'm just going to put this out as free help. I'm just going to say that if, she doesn't have to take mine, but I would recommend that she find somebody that can intelligently, with a expensive analog signal analyzer, signal counter, get a spectrum analyzer too, and do sweeps, do and get an EM, a really good quality EM meter, and do sweeps on all the walls, just to see if you have a stronger than average electrical fields that exceed like 100 volts per meter. And my guess is that she's probably surrounded by these types of fields that exceed 100 volts per meter, and that they've been more than likely dismissed as something like, oh, well, we have a lot of electronics in here, so that's normal. But when there's actually mitigation techniques that they should do and can do to minimize all those electrical fields coming from like custom home entertainment systems that a rich celebrity might have, that they would probably try to dismiss these things away with. But someone of that nature would have the resources to protect themselves from. My guess, though, is because of her conservatorship, it's such restrictions are placed on it that she doesn't even gain access to the resources that she would need to even fight this problem, even as a rich celebrity. Her father has it situated in such a way where if she wanted to do so much as like change out her cabinets in her kitchen, he could basically say no and shut it down. Today, the reason I think they compelled me to talk about this again, because I was like a year ago, um, was this whole thing about that they basically forced her to have an IUD. Now, I thought it was one thing before when she expressed that, and again, I saw a story that said that Brittany is not allowed to have kids, unless the conservatorship gives her permission. And so I thought, well, that's really cruel, but then it never occurred to me, like, well, how are they regulating that agreement? I never asked, and I don't believe that the details were ever provided until today. Maybe I just didn't see it, but they gave her an IUD, and part of her conditions is like basically her dad can make her have a birth control IUD installed in her, even though she wants to have maybe children. I mean, I don't know if she does or doesn't, guys. I think she might have expressed the desire to have kids, and to me, that's just so wow. That's just so tragically cruel. And it compounded that they're saying that she's mentally disabled or has these issues with her mental stability. And I can tell you guys, as a person that's been able to research systems that can increase electromagnetic fields surrounding a person by hacking through the wall electricity and through underground mechanisms and even overground mechanisms, I mean, you can point things down and you can go from up, underground pointed up. So she could be in a mansion, but they could have something directly under her house, even situated under her bed where she sleeps regularly, that would be frying her and tasing her and basically reminding her that if she did badly, that she's going to get these sensations sent to her body that shock her, and that if she does good and doesn't complain and takes her whatever meds and and goes on all the photo opportunities that she's supposed to and does her tours, then she'll be rewarded with not being tased. I don't know if that's happening or not, guys. I'm just going to explain to you that she shows the signs that when I look from the outside looking in, I see a person that has. I just look. I see like she has this internal. There. I don't. I'm not. I don't want to be insulting to who she expresses herself as now. I'm just telling you that I think that if she were outside of one of these systems, like if she could just be in nature and like around trees or something like that for like a few months and away from all of that crap. Just get her away from radio frequency, electrical fields for a few months and away from that environment too. On top of it, you would probably see a lot of the glow return and some of those like shiny dark rings start to go away because this is usually a sign of aggressive the plasma coming out. I've seen it happen to myself, and it creates like this oiliness around my eyes that's significant, and it makes the eyes darker, and that's when the fields are incredibly strong. And I had meters that were measuring it, and the ones that I was experiencing at 2000 volts per meter plus. Sometimes it doesn't stay that way for a long time. When you get up to that level, it's like you'll be like it'll be hard to even like talk. You're just almost like your whole body stiffens up, and it's like you've got like a tens unit that's stuck on the part that makes your whole body like muscle go and doesn't release it, but it does it to your whole body. And so I imagine if you ever use the tens, like a tens device, what I'm trying to tell you is that this would be like a way to create that sort of tens like sensation to her face or her body in general, but they usually target this area around the face as it'll aim and tune into these areas here, nose, collagen, because they're portals into the pineal gland, and then it affects everything in the central nervous system through these areas like here, and in the back. And so you know it's basically I'm telling you this as a person that's been inside them, okay? So you can take it whatever you want to. But is that, that the effect it has on you is that it kind of like creates skips in your thinking. Excuse me. Hello. Hang on really quick. Sorry, hang on. Oh, goodness. We have a friend. Hi. Hi. It's okay. I understand. Okay, hang on really quick. I'll be right back. Yes. They need help, right? Meow. I must help them, right? Hang on. All right, meow. All right, meow. Okay. That was my bad. I didn't, They snuck in. Okay. Sorry, guys. I got distracted. The cat started doing everything like that, so I was trying to talk about it. And all right. So the point is that that I've seen these systems at work, and then there's E fields associated with them. They get pretty strong, and the fields that I've measured have been like in the magnetic range. I mean, that can vary, but I tend to notice that they get up to like at like 500 nanotesla in that range, and then like usually you'll get like a couple hundred volts per meter at least, in addition to that. But it's not always that high. Sometimes it can be closer to like between 50 to 100 on the E fields, but there's almost always a large magnetic field involved with it too. So those are things that you could measure. And then I would suggest like getting a spectrum analyzer that can sweep in that range between like it's important to do the lower frequencies in the megahertz range, I've learned, because there's these wireless systems that involve like wireless power transfer, and they operate on this thing called WREL, wireless resonant energy link. So if you want it, that's the name for it, wireless resonant energy link, WREL. So that would be a search. That would be something that they would want to look into and sweep for. And then I've observed that those can be like about 9.910 megahertz, and that I've found things that were lily wave that I guess that are around that too. So I feel like there's this correlation. I just need to get the data rounded out a little bit to understand like how it all works. I mean, I'm not a person that does it. I just have detected it. So, and a lot of times it's challenging to catch these things because it's like playing the game of hot potato. Sometimes, like it's almost like whoever does it is kind of conscious and aware and knows when to flip the switch off. And so you got to be crafty at catching it. So I've had the luck of catching it on a number of occasions, but again, if you can't do a good spectrum analysis over time and actually be able to catch it in a way that whoever's doing it is unaware of, but even that's valuable, right? If just you doing a measurement for a few days chases it away, and the person's like, wow, I can suddenly sleep better and I don't feel groggy and I don't feel tired and things like that, and I don't have this problem and I don't feel like I'm getting these little light shocks or muscle twitches. And that's what it does to you. It'll give you these slight muscle twitches and it'll give you these shocks. And the thing I've noticed in reviewing Britney's footage is that even though she looks healthy and everything like that, I mean, she's fit and everything like that, and she's mobile and can get around and everything like that, these systems don't really affect you that way. I would almost argue that they would make her just do everything that she can normally do faster, a little bit faster. It would give her just a little bit. It would make her actions a little bit quicker, more prone to seeming like you're a chicken with its head cut off when you're doing things, but maybe not always clumsily. Maybe klutzy sometimes, but like it's weird to how to describe it. Yeah, you'll talk fast sometimes. You'll get into these sort of like loops and things like that. Sometimes if you're in these systems, you might start to rock your head like this, and it'll give you sort of like Parkinson's symptoms and things like that. So that's just kind of some clues there for you. But but I wanted to talk about that situation with Britney in more detail because I did this thing on Twitter, I don't know, a while ago. Let me see here. Where is it? Where at the time I was trying to just like find things that would be more entertaining that would provide a bridge, I guess you could say, for things that I guess I had an intuition about with like Gina Carano. This was before everybody. If you look when I typed this out, it was October 14th, 2020, and I discussed this idea long before that, even I think, but with people on my live streams, that I had this idea that basically that you could get Gina Carano to do a movie with Britney Spears where it would be kind of almost like a buddy action movie that would be promoted and even on the and serve a function. Like to most people who would want a popcorn action movie, it would succeed in that regard. It could be like an action film that has elements of comedy initially, but I think that it would transition about maybe halfway into the movie into being something that was a lot more serious and would actually challenge both of them dramatically. I know this, to somebody that doesn't understand a lot of the deeper issues that are going on. The idea may seem almost, I don't know, odd at first, but the more I thought about it, it would be a great bridge to solving a lot of issues, going on. But back then, guys, like Gina Carano had not been like held up as this. She hadn't been fired from that Star Wars show yet when I typed all this out. So I didn't even know. I'd still mostly known her from being in like action movies and things like that. I'm not even a mixed martial arts fan that much. It was that I saw her in Haywire and the film In the Blood in particular. And I thought that those two movies were excellent, and they were kind of ones that starred Gina Carano and had her in more, I think, In the Blood in retrospect, even though Haywire was Steven Soderbergh directed it, and it's a pretty high quality action movie. The thing I liked about In the Blood was that even though it's more of a, I don't know, it doesn't have the same budget, I guess, but it still has a lot of good quality information in it. And there's like a whole plot line about how like her husband, I'm trying to like find a way to tell you about this without like giving away the plot, but it's effectively that she has to rescue her husband from like a tourist trap island, where they go on their honeymoon. And he's basically gets into he gets into an accident, and then he has to basically what do you want to call it? What am I trying to say? He gets into an accident and he has to go to the hospital, and they wind up. Sorry, guys, I had something jammy here for a second. Came into my. They have to take him to the hospital, and when they do, he she goes to like get him at where they say he's going to be dropped off, and he's not there. And there's this part where she's going from hospital to hospital to hospital, and I was like, this is really intense. And these are like incredibly well shot scenes that I like. The direction was good, the camera work was good, her acting was top notch. I was really like caught up in the moment. Every time she went to a different hospital to find her husband and he wasn't there, her reactions were so sincere and genuine. Like it seemed like she was really experiencing it all and like living it at that moment. And the way that they shot it was almost documentary style. And so it just gave it this sense of realism. And then if she wasn't good at acting, this scene wouldn't have succeeded. And so I was like, man, this is a really good actress when she's given, like, I think it's John Stockwell that made In the Blood. And like, when you just like give her all that freedom to fully be, like whatever inside the story. And it was just like, I was really impressed with what she did there. And so it occurred to me that unique combination of traits that she has would just be this sort of like really good, strong character that when you juxtapose it against somebody like Britney Spears, that as she's coming out of this moment with this conservatorship, especially, I think that this could be a way to like step away from, I think, standard Hollywood and music culture. And that it would be a way to sort of like somebody who's that influential and everything like that I think she had such a traditional background, and to some degree, before all the Hollywood crap and everything like that, she was surrounded by this sort of like, like more of a rural Southern, kind of a neighborhood background, humble house and things like that. And I think there's this tendency to like miss being close to some of those values and everything. And there's something I think about what's gone on within the rejection of this sort of fake woke culture, and the fact that Gina Carano has been behind some of the pushback on that there's such a good match to me about how you could bridge that culture with some of the fan base that's been close to Britney historically, because they're not going to abandon her. And I don't think that people at this point would really abandon Gina Carano for working with somebody like Britney Spears. I think it's that radical of a pairing. And if you put them in a movie together where it was kind of like this action thing, but delved into a more serious plot line. Again, guys, I have this tendency to like want to investigate things relative to paperclip Nazis in nearly every screenplay. It's just one of those topics that I would love to delve into if I ever had a chance. But it doesn't have to be that. But I thought it'd be interesting to have this thing where like, anyways, I'll show you here on the screen. But I don't want this to be about the movie idea, but it was mostly about like, because that's not really the highlight of this. But the point would be, I thought it'd be a good idea though to pair them together and do this sort of like screenplay where they realize that they're maybe sisters or relatives through some genetic experiment or something like that. Maybe not real ones, but they're like genetically related somehow, and that the story transitions from being like a standard whatever to being like the two of them trying to hunt down this like eugenicist or these people that did some baby swap at a hospital and separated them when they were kids and that kind of thing. So I don't know. You can read about it. I can provide the links inside the description. I don't want to hang out or talk too much about that whole thing there, or because this isn't really about Gina Carano as much as it is Britney Spears tonight. But the thing about her conservatorship is that she's not allowed to vote. She's not allowed to have like friends without asking or permission and getting it from the parents or the father rather. And so again, like if she wants to even have somebody hang out with her, they have to like, pass through like, security and everything like that, which they're almost never going to do. I learned actually that some of the stats on here, there's something, I think they're worse now. I think that he actually gets closer to like 160,000. How much is, like 2,500 per week. I think he actually gets more than this now. I think he gets something like 16,000 per month, or I can't remember what the stat is, but yeah, this whatever these stats are, it's actually I think worse than this what I've listed here. That the disproportionate amount that she gets versus what he gets. And it's strange to me that this thing can even exist when she can actually perform, and that typically these conservatorships are for like a person like say Britney Spears was like in her 60s or 70s now and not performing like her Vegas shows, and that she had to hold on to her money, but maybe she had like something where she was going through senility and she couldn't control her decisions and things like that. A concerned relative could step in and say like, wow, she's being very impulsive. She doesn't look like she actually has control. Her eyes are crossed or something like that. Hey, can we get her some help so that she doesn't spend all of her money? And then that person's supposed to like, only do things that are relevant to like covering their expenses and things. This is supposed to be about protecting the person that's in the conservatorship from making reckless decisions that would harm their future, with their money. But see, like she was still able to perform. She was still able to consciously get up on stage and do all the things and practice and everything like that. So like the fact that she was in one of these types of legal agreements, like how it all happened and who let it happen and how it like was allowed to go on for so long, that's what I'm really hoping that people take away from this, and they take away from, again, I apologize for getting to the celebrity aspects of it earlier, guys, but I'm saying that like the takeaway, I hope that we do this, because I mentioned the Gina Carano thing because I want this to be like a healing aspect too. It's a suggestion to like, I don't know, bridge the gap between some ideologies in this country, help get a person like Britney on the right path. And at the time, I thought it might give a boost to Gina Carano, who was doing really good with the Star Wars thing. But as you can see, the Star Wars people fired her for doing the whole woke culture, saying that they're canceling everybody in Hollywood for having a different opinion and things like that. So to me, it just seems like it's a good pairing. I don't know. I think they'd make a good project together or whatever, and I think that would be kind of a cool thing to see happen, especially considering like all this crap that Britney's been through, not being allowed to get married, not being allowed to get vote, having to have an IUD installed in her. I mean, yeah, that's pretty absurd, you guys. I mean, can you imagine that? Can you imagine like somebody being in total control over your reproductive health and being able to tell you if you can or can't have a baby? It's pretty obscene. So anyways, back in October 16th, 2020, I just put, that I think that what happened is that Britney, like, she actually got like real woke, not fake woke, years ago when all that conservatorship was happening. I think that she was kind of just saying like F you to everybody, and wanting to have her own life. I think she figured, hell, I made all this money, I did all these things, I don't want anybody touching me, controlling me. And I think that she was trying to like make it to where she's like, yeah, I'm gonna get all these, and shave my head, give me all these tattoos, man. I don't want anybody doing like, oh, there's pretty Britney, oh, let's look at Britney, let's touch Britney's hair. Like I totally get it. Like that would drive me up the freaking wall too. At some point, somebody's been doing this to you since you were like before you even had a decision in it. This has been going on to her since she was like a kid. I mean, she's been performing since she was in the single digits. It's just not fair. All these people built an industry surrounding her name, and everybody gets to control it but her. It's obscene. It's just obscene, you know. And again, I'm not really trying to do this whole thing with the TMZ aspect of this. Really, it's just for some reason, guys. Even like a decade ago, when I was like not even into caring about nearly anything, I still didn't really care that much about celebrity things then. But I remember being in some forums back that many years ago and kind of saying like, God, guys, why does everybody like judging people like Britney in like such a bizarre way? Like a lot of they're like barely like their early 20s and shit. They're just going out to bars and they just turned 21 in a lot of cases, and they're going like to these different bars and doing what 21-year-olds do. They're getting drunk and they're being stupid and they're dancing and doing crap all night and everything like that. And that they've got all these photographers just waiting for them to F up and wear the wrong thing and screw up, and then so they can comment on it and act like assholes to them and everything. And it's just, you put anybody's life through a microscope like that, and it's a healthy thing to say eventually to push back a little bit and say, whatever. But I think that the reason why I focus, I think, at an intuitive level on what's going on with her is I think that at a DNA level that she's more influential than she realizes, and that they use her as a sort of influence beacon to influence the rest of the whole culture. And so anytime you have an intuition that somebody is from a bloodline like that or has a blood group, whatever, you have to look deeper into what might be going on with them in a case like this. That's all I'm saying. Because there's just so many different ways that a person that has, say, for example, that she was one of these rare blood groups, like an Rh negative and O, and that you learn that her beliefs and her values transfer across the larger population. That if you make her feel subdued, if you make her feel like, how do I say it, subjected, or what's a bad word? But yeah, I guess subdued is tamed, not questioning things or accepting the oppression or accepting the slavery and not fighting back. If you can get her to just be like, like, no, just accept it. No, we're not here to hurt you. They're going to surround her by as many people as possible because they're all on a payroll. Like, if she ever figures it all out, she's going to fire, like, a good percentage of the people that are currently making money off this whole enterprise of just taking care of her. And I just feel like, she'd probably, make entirely different decisions. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, people are talking about like, well, the things she had to do for that show, but yeah, it really is like they're treating her like a slave, and it's completely wrong. So, um, I just trying to think about like practical things that can be done, to like get her out of that situation into some like a healthier environment, because, you know, they're going to keep fighting to basically do things to be, even if she gets out of this conservatorship and everything like that. I really feel like there's a battle on for Britney's mind. And so this isn't like me trying to say like, hey, everybody, let's put her into another loop of people that are just going to like, say, hey, believe this for us, believe this for us. I just want her to be able to think of things independently. That's all. Whatever she wants to believe or whatever. But I look at those like mansion photos sometimes, and and I kind of I look at her eyes, and I just see that there's something else going on. That she's doing something with symbolic communication that's beyond what even her fan base is picking up on. That she's smarter, I think, than people give her credit for. And I think she's doing something at a pretty serious level, but there's only so much that she can do. So I don't know. It's just about making a bridge. Yeah, I agree. I'm telling you, like whatever is going on with her, it's going on with a lot of people. That's the reason why I say that it's important to study her case, because I think that the legal mechanisms as well as the potential other mechanisms involving electromagnetics are going on. A lot of these people think they have like chronic pain, or they have some like chronic fatigue syndrome, or they have some weird thing going on with their brain, or No, when you get them out of these environments for a few months, then yeah, you'll find out that a lot of times that it was being organically or inorganically created. It was being introduced into their environment, either from underground or from somewhere nearby. One method of this is called a Zephyr. That's just one brand of it. They don't make them anymore, but they pay. I mean, people can buy instructions on how to make them, and they're just things that like a neighbor can put next to you, and they tune it at 42.6 kilohertz frequency roughly, and it can be tuned a little bit up and down. And the point of that is because they've learned that the body has a water frequency is about 42.6 kilohertz. And so it's just a matter of tuning into where you are offset from that number relative. Most people are really close to that. And then once they tune into that person's water frequency, then they modulate that signal to an ELF, extremely low frequency range. So it's like the waveform is tuning into the body, and the antenna is about, I guess, like about this big. It's not even that big of an antenna, and it's set up on this base, and it pumps out, I can't remember how much the power is, but significant. And they would sell these things for like $1,200, pretty close to that, or just a little bit under that. And you could get all these different attachments for it, and they could be a shield for these types of things too. So they're not always used by people for weaponization, but my gut is most people use them to either hurt somebody or to gain control of somebody's mind, to do things to make them more willful. I don't like that. I just don't. I don't want people. If there's a way ever that I can, give people information about how those things work, I always do. But I also sometimes am reluctant to give too much information in the past, only because I was worried that somebody would try to replicate it if I did reveal it. But when I learn something like that, I do try to share it with people and say, like, well, if you sense something like that's going on with you, it can happen. And here's a relatively cheap machine that both does it to people, but if you can learn how to back engineer it, like reverse engineer it, it can probably provide a solution to protect you from something like that too. So that's all I recommend, is that remember that there's always a karma effect to what you do with energy. And I remember that constantly. So I don't mess with it. And I don't do things malicious with energy, because I believe in the karma effect of it, positive and negative, that, however you spread it, it does return to you. That's just the way that energy flows. And by the way, that's not even a thing that's involved. I mean, yes, it's practiced by religions and mystic societies, but karma is an energy concept too. I wish it was called something else, karma energetics, explaining cyclical energy. That when you okay, think of it this way: when you have a thought, you emit a frequency that's measurable through an electroencephalograph, and so that usually ranges between, if you're in idle mode, 7 to 10 hertz. Okay, so 7 to 10 cycles per second. Then I'm just challenging you with this other thought. Then now, once you understand a waveform leaves your brain and does this, then remember aether can be associated with that waveform, that plasma can be associated with that waveform. And so every thought that you have goes like out like that, and there's an attachment to it via what you're thinking about, that's programmed into the cell structure of that thought. And that thought is going to wind up traveling clear around the entire planet, because it's been amplified by that EEG, it's been amplified by your brain, and it's been pushed out. And they figure that the brainwave will go around the earth, once at least. Some people maybe more than that. And that's how we're always forming what we're living in. All of us together are constantly doing this, and we're feeding plasma. We're bringing it in and pushing it back out. And every time we bring plasma in, we're getting it from the collective consciousness, the collective hive mind. And we push it out, we're adding our own unique free will signature to the collective hive mind, then putting it back into the collective consciousness, where it gets recirculated. And that's a science-based concept. It's just harder to, I'm trying to put more tangible measurements behind it, folks. I mean, I don't like sitting there going, it's science, because some people say, no, Gabe, it's pseudoscience, even though I have meters that measure these types of things. But how do you really fully prove that a thought does what I just told you? Yeah, you're right, guys. That's challenging, but it's, to me, I've seen the evidence of it. So I'm just looking for more tangible ways of proving it. And to me, things involving GDV, the Carillion photography, and some of the soil measurements that I've been doing relative to the orgone energy, I think those provide a lot of answers, though. Huh. Yeah, guys. I mean, again, I don't know. I try not to go into the clone thing or anything like that with these types of discussions, because even though I feel like, yeah, we could all make arguments towards that. There's so many things on the surface that are provable and tangible relative to her case that if we go too far into La La Land, which isn't, look, it's not like it's La La Land, so I don't want to be insulting to you, dude. But it's just, in this case, I think there's so many things we can focus on the surface that are unfair about it, that even if you thought that she wasn't real or there's something else going on with her, that it's so relevant to talk about those aspects of it before we go too deep into the other ones. That, yeah. But I see your point, though. I mean, is she looking completely different now? Has she been swapped with somebody else? I mean, those types of things I think do happen in some people's cases. Would it happen with the Britney? I don't know. I mean, could she have gotten access to kind of resources where they could have done something like that? Is there ways for people to get like a body double to be them, and then they go someplace and live underground for a while somebody else does all the work? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I've talked about ecosystems that are similar to that, but could they work, that effectively in a situation like Britney Spears? That's the thing I don't know. I mean, that would take a lot to pull off. It seems to me like Britney would really have to be Britney. The cases that I talk about of like swapping identities or sharing an identity usually happen with people that are more lesser known actors, not exclusively, but it's mostly actors that are in B films or lower budget movies, or they're just side characters in the overall production that have no interaction or little interaction with the main stars. That's the types of things that I'm talking about. And today it's weird, actually, because I was talking to somebody else about this, and they kind of brought up a good point that this is like the perfect ecosystem of like the thing I told you about with actors. The point would be like a studio system. Say you have a television series, it would benefit you to like create an avatar as its star that's a face mask, and to just tell anybody who signs a contract to be the star of the series, if you want the check associated with this television series, you have to be Jane Doe CGI avatar actor. Yes, it'll be your essence. It's going to be your actions, and it's you running down the street and everything like that in every scene. But it's going to be that face mask of the main person, because if you ever make demands for an extra salary, we want you to know we can just get somebody else to play this person anytime we want to. So buck up, don't complain, and you'll have this role the whole time. Of course, they would want to do something like that. What if they're making a movie where it requires like, tons and tons of actors get hired, but they know that if they just have, say they need like 100 people inside the script, but they only have access to like 10, but they also have CGI masking technology. Would it be cheaper for them just to use the technology they already have and change the faces of 10 actors and make them into an extra 90? These things happen. It's just a matter of how do you pull it off logistically. And so I think it's been increasingly used more and more in Hollywood, that exact method that I've told you about, but you use a CGI masking. And then again, like, say, for example, like, I don't know, what if like Fringe, for example, that starred, I can't remember the name of the actress, but whoever played Olivia Dunham, right? That could have been three different actresses. Now, that doesn't mean it was or is. I don't know, guys. I don't even have a theory on that. But it's a series that I thought has lots of information. That's why I mentioned it. But things like that can happen. And I guess if somebody has twins or maybe triplets and it's not known, then yeah, what you're saying, white boy, that would especially be relevant to what we're talking about, because yeah, if she had a sister or two sisters, but it was never disclosed, they do that. Now, would Britney be one who does it? But here's the thing, guys. What if Britney had a twin? Or again, we could go deep into this one. I don't want to, but yeah, you could always go there, dude, right? But all those things are possible. That's all I'm trying to say. But like, we don't have to go there entirely, because just what's going on with the absurdity of the conservatorship is worth just discussing on its own merits, guys. So like, yeah, there's a lot of things that are potentially more fringe in nature that do involve those types of swaps that we could get into. And again, a lot of times it's worth taking into serious consideration, right? I think in the Britney case, though, I try not to get too deep into that rabbit hole or potential one, because to me, like, the surface level things just need to be taken more seriously. You know what I mean? And and so, like, I feel like if we get too deep into that topic with this one, like, it's because she's so well known, that it could backfire on helping her out. And I don't want to do that. I would really like to see her get some, freedom from this whole situation and not be associated with too much of the deeper conspiracy things, you know? And that's why I try to say that, like, having a movie bridge or something like that to work with a star that has that kind of stature right now, maybe with some of the people that are more in the truth community, that might be a kind of a good thing. I don't know. Maybe not. You know, I feel like there needs to be more safe environments for more people in America to kind of just be like, hey, it's okay just to be the person that likes this country. It isn't trying to be confrontational, isn't effing with anybody or whatever. Just they're they're just like, look, I just want to be me and be happy and love my country and live a traditional lifestyle. And if that's what they want, they should be able to. You know. And there's been plenty of concessions made for people that want to live a less traditional lifestyle and whatever. But it got to a point where it teetered over to where everybody was sort of like aggressively saying, like, well, you must be this way, right? And I know there's a lot of celebrities out there that want to have a safe bridge to talk about these things, but they just feel like it's not okay to do that. So when I thought of this concept between her and Gina hadn't been like known yet as the person that spoke out, like, and got fired for it, for the Star Wars show. So I feel like it's more relevant now, even that that's why I brought it up. Relevant to this discussion was because that might be a good bridge. I think it'd be a kind of a cool movie, the two of them. That's all. Yeah, yeah. I think that a lot of times, though, the way this could, it's only, guys, because I found so many shenanigans with genetics where I found people like having twins and triplets and didn't know it. Sometimes they'll have triplets, and two will be raised as twins, and everybody will like say, "Hey, these are twins," but then the triplet is taken someplace else entirely and told that they were, an only child. Weird things like that happen, and within the celebrity class. And I think maybe the point of it was like, it might have been an early form of like, well, if you don't play ball, we can swap you out. There's two twins over there that have totally different values than you, so you can either play ball or get replaced by one of your twins. Like, what? I've got siblings? And what if the siblings were raised on the other side of the country, all that time? And again, this is before the internet era we're talking here, guys. So it was a lot easier to get away with doing things like that, up until about the 80s. But once we got into the 90s, yeah, you couldn't do all these weird things with genetic swaps, and it just, they had to come up with something now in the modern times to cover all that. So, but yeah, it might be a discussion worth having another time or something like that. But I don't know. But yeah, guys, I mean, can you imagine that? Like, that somebody would make you be on an IUD. That's like, when I read that detail today, I just couldn't believe that. I think it's over here. Like, how the hell do you make somebody? How do you make somebody do that? That's what I don't understand. How is that even allowed? Where is it? It's weird actually. They were really pushing that thing earlier today, and then suddenly, like, you don't find any mention of it on about the IUD, the birth control that she was like had to forced to be on. So that's, I think, why she was like really pushing back. I think lately it was because she was pissed off about the forced IUD, and for good reason, man. I mean, seriously, that's when I got super offended by the whole thing. Like, you're like, it's one thing, like the whole like keeping her from voting. That's like even obscene. Even in the conservatorship, you're not going to let her vote for who she wants to. You're going to take it to that level. How does a person regain their humanity when you're being that ridiculous with it? You know? Yeah. Hmm. Oh wow, dude. Yeah. So if, I mean, if you know something about McAfee that I don't, tell me. I mean, I was trying to be more like in memoriam respectful about it or whatever, but you guys, I don't have an effective answer for the shielding aspects of it, because it involves extremely low frequency. And then, I haven't found anything personally that's that effective. I mean, some things can diminish whatever, but if you don't learn how to operate your own brain waves to some degree, like, I try to wear wool blend hats. Wool blend helps because then at least, within this processing here, you're recirculating orgone. And if you can keep kind of like a even cool mental state most of the time and not get too rattled by anything, it's more effective having the hat. As weird as that sounds, guys, because I like anytime somebody tells me like, do you what kind of protection can you use? I go, well, number one, if you're gonna go there, know what you're protecting yourself against, and if you don't know what you're protecting yourself against, then it's not going to do you any good. You're just going to get something that winds up probably doing more harm to you than good. And I know, as a person that wore a shielded cap for like a couple years, that I kind of knew the logic was flawed, but it gave me this sense that I was doing something and not just taking it. And it really didn't do anything. It didn't help. But that's all right. Like, if people will learn on their own, like, you can test these things with meters. But no, if you're going to use any shielding materials for different signals and everything like that, you have to think about signal flow, and you have to like maybe put on a whiteboard or like write it down. Like, what direction is a signal coming from? Like, some people talk about putting paint on the outside walls, and I go, well, what if the energy is coming from the inside of your house? What if it's inside your walls? Then you put lead paint on the out, or not lead paint, but you put the blocking paint, the RF blocking paint on the outside, and then you make like turn your the inside of your house into like a microwave oven, because you're radiating yourself through the amplification of the internal copper wiring. That's not being done by you, but now you've made it to where it doesn't push on the outside; it's only coming inside. Again, there's all kinds of things that should help, and then when you investigate a little bit deeper, you're like, oh man, that may not help. If I find one thing that works, another thing may be set up to not work after that. So the best thing I can tell you is just to have the equipment to measure the effectiveness of what you're doing, and that would be the EM meter, the electromagnetic field meter, and get a good quality one of those. I'd say those are worth spending, 500 plus on. If you can get a better quality one that can log over time and plug into a computer, and you know how to use it and learn how to use it, then that's where your real value will come in. That way you don't have to sit there and hold on to the thing. You can actually do like find out what one room's like for hours at a time without having to monitor it and hold on to it. Yeah. Yeah, I tend to yeah, so I boy was saying, that he thinks that he didn't think that McAfee was trafficking with them, but he provided encrypted communications. Um, yeah, I don't know. McAfee, I think his perspective on these things was just total anonymity on all these transactions, and so I think he just promoted that idea that no matter what was going on with it, his idea was freedom across the board. So he didn't look at it any differently, the passing of the communications, I think, any differently than like coming up with a whole new monetary system. It's just an accepted thing that people use the US dollar to buy drugs, buy humans with actual dollars and $100 bills or whatever you say, right? They're out there buying people. And you know, do you say that that monetary system is defined by those transactions any more than you would with a cryptocurrency? I don't know. I think it's just a little different with crypto and the way the pathways work, and that's why, I mean, it's something that needs to have a discussion, but not have a person wait 8 months in jail on an extradition charge. That's effed up. I mean, that's the total lack. I mean, that's just the total lack of. That shows what their intention was. They wanted the guy to rot. They wanted him to die. And I know how this FBI and DOJ tends to work. So I just didn't want that to go in vain. What this guy did, as far as like his relevant disclosure material, the parts that he gave people with that, regardless of what you think about the guy and everything else he did. I'm not a fan of all of his activities, guys, or whatever. Again, not making excuses for people. I'm just saying that he's there's a lot of good information if you go to John McAfee's channel and look back at his interviews and things like that, and especially his longer form ones. Very informative, and he taught people quite a bit. So I thought that was worth mentioning too. Yeah. I mean, that's all, guys. Like we're kind of in an F system right now, and so I feel like the FBI, if they want to be considered legitimate, they have to be showing the American population that they're protecting us and providing value for what they're costing us. And if they're not doing that, then they're just a rogue agency that's really become more of a master warehousing of all the cartels and gangs, and that's not cool either. So, I don't know how to compare a McAfee against an FBI versus a whatever. So, all right, guys, that's all I got for tonight, I think. I just really wanted to kind of cover those two topics for today and everything like that. Sorry if I'm a little bit rough around the edges tonight, guys. I'm trying to get back into the swing of things and do material that's a little bit more relevant and things like that. But I wanted to kind of do this and, just kind of show little extra words that are maybe a little bit different from the standard narratives you hear today about the topics relevant to McAfee and Britney. So, but I appreciate everybody joining here, and yeah, and seriously, yeah, like let's help those who haven't figured it out get on the right track to where they understand it too, and just do our best to be respectful. And I'm just trying to communicate it better whenever I can, guys. I'm not always perfect at it, but I'm trying to get better with it. So thank you for joining and everything. And I'll be back soon with more material. I'm gonna have more relevant material, guys, soon about things that are on the energetics topic. So stay tuned for that. Have a good night.